I was halfway down the gravel road that cut through the reserve when the sound ripped through the air. It wasn't the usual cry of a bird or the distant roar of an elk. This was raw, sharp, and desperate. My gut clenched. I pulled the quad bike to the side, killed the engine, and listened. Another cry, shorter this time, but it carried a deep rasp that made my skin crawl. Something was in trouble. I grabbed the radio clipped to my vest. Static buzzed as I pressed the button. Control, it's Mark. I've got a distress call. Sounds like a Lynx. Location, East Ridge near the Cottonwoods. I'm moving in. I didn't wait for an answer. Some calls don't leave room for protocol. I pushed the quad as far as I could along the narrow trail and jumped off. The cries came faster, broken by heavy gasps. My boots sank into damp soil as I ran through brush, branches slapping my arms. The forest was alive with tension, birds bursting from trees as if fleeing the same sound that drew me in. Then I saw her. A lynx, full-grown, muscles taut under her spotted coat, pacing beneath a large oak. Her eyes locked onto me, not with the defiance I'd expect, but with something else. Her ears were back, and she let out a guttural cry that made my chest tighten. Above her, on a thick branch, coils of muscle and scales wound tighter and tighter around a small body. My breath caught. A lynx cub, pinned in the crushing grip of a massive python. For a split second I froze, my mind refusing to stitch together the sight. Pythons didn't belong here. Then instinct slammed back in. I dropped to a crouch, scanning the ground for tools, weapons, anything. The mother lynx didn't move to attack me. She kept her distance, as if begging me to do what she couldn't. I pulled the polycarbonate shield from the rack on my quad, heart hammering. It was standard issue for close animal work, but it felt like a toy compared to the bulk of that snake. The cub squealed, weaker this time. The coils flexed, scales glistening with sweat and tension. Time was bleeding away. I called into the radio again, breathless. Emma, Daniel, I need you both now. East Ridge Oak Stand. Python, cub caught. Repeat, Python. Bring sedation kit and reptile restraints. My voice cracked at the word python, but I forced it steady. I couldn't let panic show, not now. I moved forward slowly, shield raised. The python's head shifted, tongue flicking, black eyes fixed on me. I eased the restraining pole from the loop on my belt, the curved end shaking only slightly in my grip. The cub gave a faint gasp, legs twitching. My throat went dry. I had to act. Easy, girl, I muttered, glancing at the mother lynx. She paced, but didn't leap. Her tail lashed the ground, ears flattened, but she held back. I stepped under the oak, lifted the pole, and nudged at the snake's midsection. The python shifted, coils tightening before loosening an inch. The cub let out another strangled sound, eyes wide with terror. I pressed again, harder this time. The snake recoiled, striking out, its head slamming against the shield. The impact rattled my bones, but the barrier held. I stumbled back, boots digging into the soil, poles scraping against the bark. The lynx snarled, low and trembling, as if urging me on. I planted my feet and pushed the snake's body sideways. It writhed, wrapping tighter for a moment, then loosening again. The cub whimpered, chest rising shallowly. I could see its sides shuddering, ribs pressing under fur. I shoved harder, the pole bending under the strain. The python hissed, body rippling, and I could feel the strength of it through the metal. The cub's paws twitched weakly, claws catching the bark. My breath came fast, sweat running into my eyes. The shield jolted as the python struck again, this time sliding along the edge, mouth gaping. Its teeth scraped the surface with a screech that made me flinch. I steadied myself, heart pounding in my throat. My arms trembled, but I held firm. I had no choice. The cub cried out once more, faint, almost gone. The coils surged, muscles rippling with terrifying force. I knew I was running out of time. Reinforcements were still minutes away. It was just me, a shield, and a stick of steel against an apex constrictor. I braced, pressed the pole with all my weight, and prayed it would be enough to buy the cub another breath. The python shifted, twisting higher along the branch, dragging the cub tighter against the bark. I lunged forward, pushing up with the shield to wedge between the coils and the cub's chest. My muscles screamed as the snake pressed back, its body as unyielding as iron. The lynx mother let out another cry, sharper, piercing, right in my ear. It jolted through me like an order. I roared, shoving upward with everything I had. For a split second, I thought the branch itself would snap. The snake coiled tighter, and the cub's eyes rolled back, body sagging. My stomach dropped. I could hear sirens in the distance, faint but coming closer. Reinforcements, but too far. My hands shook, palms raw against the grip of the pole. The python scales scraped against my shield as it bore down. The cub let out a final weak gasp, its tiny chest barely moving. My heart slammed as I realized how close we were to losing it. And still, the pressure grew stronger. The sound of an engine tore through the trees. Relief hit me hard. Emma's truck skidded onto the trail, brakes squealing as she jumped out with her kit. Her face went pale when she saw what hung from the oak. "Dear God, Mark," she said, voice shaking. "How is this even possible?" No time for questions, I barked. "Cub's still alive. Python's tightening. We've got minutes, maybe less." Emma sprinted forward, lugging the sedation case. She knelt on the damp earth, snapping open vials with practiced speed. Her hands moved fast, but I caught the tremor in her fingers. She'd worked with sedatives for bears, deer, even wolves. But a python? This was new ground. "We wait for Daniel," she said, loading the syringe into the blowpipe. "He knows reptiles. If we dose wrong, we don't have the luxury," I cut in. My arms ached from holding the shield steady. "Look at the cub. You see how shallow it's breathing? We wait, and it dies." Emma cursed under her breath, eyes flicking to the lynx mother pacing in the shadows. The cat hissed, claws gouging the soil, but she still held her distance. It was as if even she understood the stakes. Emma lifted the pipe, lining up her shot. The python's body rippled, coils flexing as it pressed harder into the cub's chest. The tiny body convulsed. My gut twisted. Sweat dripped from my chin onto the shield. "Do it," I urged. "Now." She exhaled slowly, aiming at a thick patch of muscle. With a soft puff, the dart flew, embedding into the snake's scales. The python recoiled, twisting violently. The branch shook, leaves raining down. The cub gave a weak cry, barely audible. "Hit," Emma said, voice tight. "But it'll take a minute." "A minute's too long." I shoved with the pole, grinding the hook into the snake's body, trying to pry a gap. The python thrashed, striking down. Its head smashed against the shield again, this time harder. The impact nearly knocked me off my feet. I dug my boots into the soil, grunting. Emma reached into her bag again, pulling a heavier syringe. "Backup dose." "But Mark, if we overdose?" "I'll take the blame," I snapped. "We're losing it." The cub let out another gasp, then went limp for a terrifying second before twitching weakly. My chest clenched. The python's muscles rippled under my pole, iron bands tightening, then loosening just enough for me to slide the hook deeper. I shoved with everything I had, teeth gritted, arms screaming. Emma leaned closer, pipe ready. "I need a clean angle. Hold it steady." The snake's head lashed sideways, jaws gaping. Its teeth scraped the shield, screeching like nails on metal. Emma flinched but steadied herself, crouching lower. She aimed again, this time for the softer scales near the belly. The dart shot out, sinking deep. The python jerked violently, body coiling tighter in reflex. The cub's chest was squeezed flat against the bark. I shouted, ramming the pole upward, forcing space. The cub sagged, legs dangling. Come on," Emma muttered, eyes fixed on the snake's trembling muscles. The sedative had to kick in. It had to. The lynx mother cried out again, sharp and piercing. Her eyes glowed with fury, yet she didn't strike at us. She was waiting, watching if we would save her young. I held the shield tight as the python's head darted low, faster than I expected. Its jaws snapped against the edge, teeth clicking. Emma jerked back just in time, stumbling into the mud. The strike missed her hand by inches. "Jesus," she gasped, scrambling upright. "That thing almost took my arm." The snake hissed, mouth gaping wide, head weaving back for another strike. The cub hung limp in its coils, life dangling by a thread. My arms trembled as I pressed harder with the pole, praying the drugs would take hold before it was too late. The crunch of heavy boots on gravel cut through the chaos. Daniel's voice thundered as he pushed through the brush. "Step back, I've got the head." Relief and adrenaline surged in me all at once. The python's eyes locked on the new arrival, tongue flicking. Daniel didn't flinch. He carried a reinforced reptile hook in one hand and a burlap restraint bag in the other. His face was stone, eyes hard. Mark, shield up. Don't let it swing wide, he ordered. Emma, stand by with another dose if needed. We're doing this now. The python struck down again, jaws crashing against my shield. The sound rattled my bones. Daniel moved fast, sweeping the hook under its neck and pinning the head flat against the branch. The snake writhed, body rippling, coils jerking tighter. Got it, Daniel barked. Hold steady. I shoved the shield higher, bracing against the tree. My arms burned, but I held on. Emma crouched low, her blowpipe ready. She didn't wait for permission. A dart zipped through the air, piercing just above the python's rib line. The snake shuddered, muscles spasming. Dose in, Emma said, her voice clipped. Minimal, just enough to weaken tone. Daniel leaned his weight into the hook, jaw clenched. Give it 30 seconds. Then we moved the coils. 30 seconds felt like 30 years. The cub whimpered, barely, its chest shivering against the crushing bands. The lynx mother cried again, circling, ears flat. Her patience was fraying, but she still didn't strike. Somehow, she trusted us, or had no choice. The python's grip trembled, muscles twitching. I saw the first slack in the coil around the cub's chest. Now, I yelled. Daniel barked, left side, Mark. Push. I jammed the pole deeper under the snake's midsection and heaved. The coil shifted, loosening enough for me to wedge the shield between snake and cub. The cub sagged, legs twitching weakly. Emma rushed forward, reaching to pull it free. Not yet, Daniel snapped. Tail still locked. Wait for me. The python's tail was a vice, twisted twice around the cub's hips. Daniel shifted, pressing the hook harder against the snake's head. His boots dug into the bark, muscles straining. Emma, another microdose. Keep it awake, but weaker. Emma loaded fast, breath ragged. Another dart flew, hitting lower along the body. The python hissed, a low guttural sound, body convulsing. The coils spasmed, loosening. This was the opening. Now, Mark, Daniel shouted. I lunged, sliding the shield under the cub's belly. With a grunt, I shoved upward, prying it out of the coils. The snake thrashed, body whipping against my shield. Daniel cursed, fighting to hold the head pinned. Emma threw herself closer, grabbing the cub's scruff with both hands. The python's tail snapped tight one last time, jerking the cub from her grip. The little body dangled, limp, caught halfway free. My heart lurched. Pull, Daniel roared. I dropped the pole, wrapped my arms around the cub, and yanked with everything I had. The python writhed, but its muscles gave way, sedation finally biting deep. The cub slipped free, tumbling from the branch. I fell back, cradling it against my chest. Its fur was slick with sweat, eyes half closed. For a heartbeat, I thought I felt it breathe. Then nothing. No rise, no fall. Mark, Emma's voice was sharp, desperate. Is it? It's not breathing. I cut in, my throat raw. My hands shook as I pressed the limp body closer, feeling for any pulse, any sign. The lynx mother screamed, a sound so fierce it made the air vibrate. She leapt onto a nearby log, claws digging deep, eyes locked on me and her cub. She didn't move closer, but the message was clear. Save it. I looked down at the tiny chest, still and silent in my arms. Cold fear surged through me. Seconds mattered. Seconds would decide if this cub lived or died. And right now, we were almost out of them. I laid the cub flat on the damp earth, my hands trembling. Its chest was still, fur slicked to the skin. I pressed 2 fingers to its ribs. Nothing. Panic surged, but training kicked in. I cupped my hands, pressing quick, firm compressions against the tiny chest. 1, 2, 3. I leaned down, sealing my mouth over its nose and exhaled gently. The air pushed its chest up, then sagged. Keep going, Emma shouted, kneeling beside me. She pulled a portable oxygen mask from her kit, fumbling with the tubing. Don't stop, Mark. Daniel grunted in the background, still wrangling the python into a burlap sack. The snake hissed weakly, sedation dragging it down. But all I saw was the cub. 1, 2, 3 compressions. Another breath. I prayed for a twitch, a gasp, anything. The lynx mother paced in tight circles, her cries slicing through the forest. She was holding herself back by sheer will. Finally, a faint shudder ran through the cub's chest. Emma slid the mask over its face, twisting the valve open. Oxygen hissed softly, and she guided my hands away. I've got it. Keep its airway clear. I sat back, chest heaving. My hands were covered in mud and fur. Emma watched the cub's chest rise, slow but steady now. Relief washed over me, sharp and overwhelming. But we weren't out of danger yet. Into the box, Emma said. We can stabilize better there. I scooped the cub up carefully, cradling it against my vest. Its body was limp, but the faint rhythm of breath gave me hope. Emma cleared the path to the truck, where the mobile vet box sat waiting. We hurried across the clearing, Daniel catching up with the restrained python slung in its sack. The box was cramped but functional, lined with medical gear. Emma slid the cub onto the padded table, attaching leads and checking vitals. The monitor beeped weakly, numbers flickering on the screen. I leaned against the wall, finally letting the exhaustion crash through me. My arms throbbed from the fight, my throat raw from shouting. Daniel dropped the sack into the corner, wiping sweat from his forehead. That was too close. Emma didn't look up. It's not stable. Fluids, oxygen, constant monitoring. We keep fighting. Daniel exhaled hard, then muttered, "Shouldn't have been here in the first place." His words hung heavy. I closed my eyes, replaying yesterday in my mind. The python had arrived after a federal raid on an illegal breeder. We'd taken in half a dozen exotic reptiles, most secured in the quarantine shed. But the lock on one crate was old, the metal warped. I'd noticed it, meant to flag it for repair. I hadn't. That lapse had opened the door for today. I swallowed hard, shame pressing on my chest. That one was on me, I admitted. I saw the faulty latch. Should have fixed it. Daniel didn't argue. He just looked at me, steady and silent. Emma glanced up, eyes sharp. We deal with blame later. Right now, the cub lives or dies. The sound of tires on gravel pulled our heads around. A second truck rolled up, camera gear glinting through the windshield. A woman climbed out, microphone in hand, cameraman at her heels. She was already talking before she reached us. Is it true? A python attacked a lynx cub inside the reserve? How did this happen? Her voice was sharp, already framing the story. I stepped outside, blocking her path. Not now. We're stabilizing an animal. She angled the mic closer. People are going to want answers. Was this negligence? Are visitors safe? Did the reserve import this snake? Her questions bit like teeth. I forced my tone flat. The python was evidence from a federal seizure. It wasn't meant to be near the lynx. We're correcting the failure. That's all I can tell you right now. Emma called out behind me. Mark, I need another set of hands. I turned on my heel, shutting the door in the reporter's face. The woman's muffled protests followed me inside, but I tuned them out. The cub needed me more. Emma was adjusting fluids, her brow furrowed. The monitor beeped erratically, then steadied. She exhaled sharply, relief flashing in her eyes. It's holding. Barely, but holding. Daniel leaned against the wall, arms crossed. That story's gonna hit the news in an hour. I don't care, I said, eyes fixed on the cub. We save it first. Then we talk. The box went quiet except for the hiss of oxygen and the weak beeping of the monitor. Outside, the lynx mother padded close, her shadow flickering against the door. Then, with a soft thud, she pressed against the wood, as if she knew her cub was just inside. Emma glanced at me, her voice barely above a whisper. She's waiting for us to do our part. I stood frozen, staring at that shadow. The weight of her trust was heavier than anything I'd carried all day. The night after the rescue stretched longer than any I could remember. We took turns sitting in the truck outside the mobile vet box, eyes flicking between the monitors inside and the forest around us. The cub's vitals wavered, sometimes strong, sometimes fading. Every beep of the machine was a lifeline. And outside, the mother lynx never left. Through the cameras we'd set up, we saw her pacing, circling, then finally lying down just feet from the door. She rested her head on her paws, ears twitching at every sound. At dawn she was still there, eyes fixed on the box. It felt like a vigil, her silent demand that we keep our promise. The following days blurred into constant care. Emma monitored fluids and oxygen, adjusting doses, coaxing food into the cub once it stirred. I held its tiny body as we checked reflexes, feeling the life return with every small twitch. Daniel handled the python, transferring it to a secure facility until federal officers arrived. The sack was locked, sealed, tagged. No room for another mistake. The media storm hit fast. The reporters' footage spread online, headlines screaming about negligence and danger. I stayed quiet, refusing interviews. Emma released only one statement. The cub was alive, and the python was under control. That was all anyone needed to know. A week later, the cub stood on shaky legs inside the transition pen. Its breathing was steady, ribs rising smooth and strong. Emma smiled for the first time in days. "It's ready." We loaded the crate into the truck and drove to the release site, deep in the reserve where the lynx mother had been spotted by our cameras. The air was cool, the forest alive with the sound of wind through leaves. I felt my chest tighten as we set the crate on the ground. The door swung open. The cub hesitated, ears twitching. Then, with a wobble, it stepped out, paws sinking into the dirt. Almost instantly, a shadow moved from the trees. The mother appeared, her form fluid and strong. She padded forward slowly, eyes locked on her young. The cub let out a faint mew, and the mother answered with a low rumble that carried through the clearing. She touched her nose to its head, nuzzling gently. The cub pressed close, rubbing against her chest. Watching them together felt like witnessing something sacred. We stood back, silent. Daniel lowered his camera, unwilling to intrude. Emma's eyes shone, but she didn't speak. It was enough to see the cub safe. The mother glanced at us once, a long look that held no threat. Then she turned, guiding the cub back into the undergrowth. Their spotted coats melted into the shadows until they were gone. Later that day, paperwork confirmed the python's transfer to a specialized reptile center. It would never threaten native wildlife again. The reserve reinforced every quarantine lock, new steel latches bolted in place. Mistakes had been costly, and we couldn't afford another. As the sun dipped low, I walked the trail back to where it all began. The ground was soft from recent rain, and in the mud I found them. Prints of the mother, large and sure, alongside the smaller, lighter marks of the cub. They trailed off into the woods together. I crouched, pressing my hand beside them. My palm dwarfed the cub's tiny prints. I thought of the trust in the mother's eyes, the weight of it pressing heavier than the python ever could. We'd saved a life, but we'd also been reminded of our place. The forest grew quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full rather than empty. I stood, breathing deep. This story wasn't about victory or heroics. It was about responsibility and the thin line between our world and theirs. And as the last light slipped through the trees, I knew I'd carry that weight for the rest of my life.